For reviews, interviews, and your daily film picks, click the bell icon and subscribe to Film Companion South now.
Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode, I am looking forward to comparing two films, remakes. The first film is called Joseph, made by Padmakumar in Malayalam. The second film is called Visithiran, directed by the same director in Tamil. Obviously, they have seen that an earlier film called Drishyam was a big success there and it was remade with Papanasam here and then other films, other languages. So probably in that kind of an outlook, they would have said, let's make a film which can go multilingual. So here you have Joseph, made in Malayalam by the same director, Padmakumar. He makes it as Visithiran in Tamil, and they are absolutely a shot by shot copy. But how different? Padmakumar's Joseph is a huge success in Malayalam, in Kerala, and Visithiran disappears without a trace. And that's what I was intrigued. How did this happen? How can an exact copy disappear like this? The first rule for me when I see a film which is a whodunit, a mystery story, a deep, complicated, murder mystery that is happening there, the most important thing as I have learned from other films is that the primary leading character has to be very endearing. For example, when you see a James Bond movie, when you see Sean Connery or P.S. Brosnan or you see Daniel Craig, they are very endearing people. So they are not relying on big armies trying to help them out. They do everything on their own. Similarly, when you see Sherlock Holmes, he does it on his own. Hercule Poirot, he does it on his own. So similarly, it is in that genre of a single person wanting to go and find out how did his girlfriend, his ex-wife and his daughter die in some kind of freak accidents. So the primary character has to be very endearing. So you have George in the Malayalam version and you have R.K. Suresh in the Tamil version. George as Joseph comes through as so endearing. He's so warm. A song sequence in the beginning makes him sing a song and he's laughing. He's kind of taking himself on the charisma of Mohanlal, Whereas R.K. Suresh here has no precedent. He looks very grim. He looks very dull. He looks completely unmotivated. So when your primary narrator, your primary protagonist is so unmotivated, how do you go through this? And then comes a rather complicated, what I would say as cultural area. The Kerala culture versus the Tamilian culture. And you can see there is a cultural shift here. Padmakumar, who's made a success in the Malayalam film, is unable to somehow cater to a Tamil landscape. What are some of the serious differences? The first thing is that Malayalam film, you take it for granted, the audience take it for granted that Christians are part of their community. So it's a film set in an entirely Christian community. Everybody is Christian in the film. And the Malayali audiences have kind of embraced them into their fold. Whereas Christians in Tamil cinema are not so easily adapted. Very few films in Tamil cinema actually have Christian characters. They are all Hindu characters. That's the first problem. The second problem is that in the Kerala ethos, when men sit down and drink, it seems to be a very normal activity. It's a very healthy, normal activity. They keep drinking and they keep talking and guffawing. Whereas in Tamil cinema, if men get to drink, they are always seen as crooked people. They are seen as gangsters. They are seen as rowdies. Why should men drink like this, Whereas in Kerala cinema, it seems to be normal. The next is, there is a religious thing. So there is the worship of Jesus Christ and the Mother Mary, seems to be very normal. But here, Padmakumar wants to somehow say, hey, he is part of this atmosphere, the Tamilian atmosphere. So he has R.K. Suresh, this primary character, playing Mayan, worshipping both Christ and Muruga at the same time. Why would you do that? The next is the native styles. In the Malayalam film, you have a typical song which is sung in all these weddings and they wear this typical white sari with gold embroidered and then they go and dance and it looks very natural. Whereas in the Tamil film, a similar sequence has some kind of a Bollywood dance, which is so out of place. And then the women characters, the Christian women characters in the Malayalam film, they seem so naturally blending into their atmosphere. Whereas this heroine of our film in the Tamil version, Visithiran, stands out like a sore thumb. She's so fair, so different from everybody on the screen. So she simply doesn't match into that film. So I find these are some of the problems when you do a cultural shift from Malayalam into Tamil. And there are these serious problems of framing and the way you light up. So in the Malayalam film, for example, there is this hospital sequence where you see it's set so natural. It looks like an old bungalow which has been converted to a hospital. It's warm and you go in there without actually anticipating that there is going to be any problem here. You just feel, okay, this is a hospital, and you go with the characters. Whereas actually the hospital is holding a very deep mystery. They are actually trading organs, body organs, in very, very vicious ways, which these poor characters have no clue about. But in the Tamil film, the hospital comes through as cold, blue, almost making you suspect that there is some problem here. And the problem is amplified by this character called Peter, played by Bhagavati Perumal in the Tamil film. Whereas in the Malayalam film, the character played by Peter does not come through as a possible murderer. Whereas when you see Bhagavati on the screen, you think, did this guy kill those women? Now, so these are some of the problems I think Padmakumar has completely overlooked, and he has shown it to the audience, and the audiences simply could not take this film. So it's a great lesson, because the film is already announced, in their Kannada versions and the Hindi version. These directors have to pull their socks and say, let's do a better job in the next language version. Wish them all the best. Thank you.